Like the Operation Mwinzi wa Kimya, the Swahili or Guardian of Silence, which was launched in March 2005 in South Sudan by UPDF, we asked why President Museveni is silent on the South Sudan-Uganda border conflict. The border conflict between Uganda and South Sudan has persisted for years, allegedly centered on disputes over land ownership, colonial demarcations, and resources access. In recent times, skirmishes and tensions have escalated, particularly in areas like Moyo, Namor, and Yuma districts in northern Uganda. Despite increasing public concern and several cross-border incidents involving both soldiers and civilians, Uganda President Yoweri Museveni has maintained a notably quiet stance. This silence has prompted questions and debates both domestically and internationally. Why is Museveni silent on South Sudan border? This video explores the rationale behind Museveni's quiet diplomacy, the underlying political and regional dynamics, and the broader strategic interests at play. A historical overview of the conflict. To understand Museveni's silence, it's vital to appreciate the historical context of the Uganda-South Sudan border dispute. The roots of the tension straight back to the colonial era, when arbitrary boundaries were drawn by British administrators without consulting the local communities. This has resulted in overlapping claims, with communities on both sides of the border insisting that they were historically and culturally linked to lands now contested. South Sudan gained independence in 2011, and with it came the formalization of new national borders. However, many of these boundaries remain poorly demarcated, and in some cases, completely undefined. This ambiguity has given rise to intermittent disputes, especially in resource-rich, agriculturally fertile areas. Villages such as Wamoromo in Lamore district and Lefori in Moyo district have seen military tensions. A bomb was dropped in Akwang, which we also have the video on our channel. Civilian displacement and diplomatic protest. Museveni's diplomatic style, quiet but strategic. President Museveni is now new to regional geopolitics. With nearly 4 decades in power, he has played a crucial and critical role in mediating conflicts across the Great Lakes region and East Africa, from South Sudan's civil war to tensions in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Museveni often prefers closed-door negotiations and behind-the-scenes diplomacy. This same approach appears to be applied to the South Sudan border tensions. Rather than making bold public pronouncements, Museveni has sent high-ranking officials and envoys to the affected areas and encouraged bilateral border committees to engage in dialogue. In late 2023, he dispatched ministers to Moyo and Yumbe to investigate the growing tension and consult with local leaders. By choosing not to publicly confront South Sudanese leadership, Museveni is likely trying to preserve regional stability and Uganda's influence in Juba. Uganda has substantial interest in South Sudan, including economic trade, refugee hosting, and military cooperation. Uganda's strategic interest in South Sudan is one of Uganda's largest trading partners, especially for northern Uganda districts. Goods, services, and labor flow freely across the border, contributing to Uganda's economy. During South Sudan's internal conflicts, Uganda played a key role in supporting the government of President Salva Kiir. He even deploying the Uganda's People's Defense Forces to protect Juba and vital installations. This deep involvement has not been without controversy. Critics, including members of Uganda's parliament and civil society, have accused the Museveni government of favoring his regime, thereby undermining Uganda's neutrality. Nonetheless, Museveni's administration has remained consistent in portraying itself as a regional peace broker. A confrontational stance on the border conflict could jeopardize this delicate relationship. Publicly criticizing the South Sudanese government might push Juba toward other regional players or escalate tensions that spill over into Uganda. Silence, therefore, serves as a strategic posture to avoid losing interest. Avoiding escalation and maintaining regional stability is another key reason for Museveni's silence. The desire to avoid escalation. With both UPDF and South Sudanese troops stationed near disputed borderlines, any inflammatory remarks could trigger armed confrontation. In July 2025, there were reports of deadly clashes between the two militaries, resulting in casualties on both sides. A ceasefire was reached, but the underlying issues remain unresolved. In such a volatile environment, words from a head of state carry tremendous weight. Museveni's public silence may be a calculated move to prevent misinterpretation and potential provocation. Instead, Uganda has leaned on diplomacy, advocating for joint border demarcation efforts to be finalized by 2027. Moreover, Uganda is currently managing other sensitive domestic and regional issues, including tensions in the Democratic Republic of Congo, refugee crisis, and upcoming national elections. So Uganda will not accept any other external problem. Engaging in a loud border confrontation would be a political distraction. Let me talk about internal political calculations. Domestically, Museveni's silence may also be influenced by internal political considerations. Northern Uganda, where much of the border conflict is concentrated, has historically been politically sensitive region. Years of civil conflict and marginalization have created a deep mistrust between the government and some local communities. While Museveni has made efforts to rebuild trust through development projects and peace initiatives, corruption and other things have really undermined the attempts. An aggressive stance on border issues could rekindle all resentments. By remaining silent publicly but acting diplomatically behind the scenes, Museveni may be trying to avoid being seen as dismissive or confrontational in the eyes of northern communities. He is likely betting that local leaders and regional diplomacy can manage the situation more effectively than presidential rhetoric. Regional mediation framework and the role of IGAD in this. Museveni's silence also aligns with broader regional mediation frameworks. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, that's IGAD, which Uganda and South Sudan are both part of, has taken an active interest in stabilizing the region. Through IGAD and the African Union, Uganda has engaged in initiatives aimed at peaceful resolution and regional integration. Making a unilateral public statement might undermine ongoing multilateral efforts. Museveni appears to be aligning with the principles of collective action, allowing IGAD and border commissions to handle the matter in a coordinated fashion. Additionally, Uganda has championed the East African Community as EAC integration process, Heightened tensions with South Sudan could derail the effort, especially given South Sudan's relatively recent entry into the EAC. Museveni's broader regional ambitions likely inform his careful handling of the issue. The cost of silence, rising public frustration. Despite the strategic reasoning, Museveni's silence has not gone unchallenged. In Uganda, especially among leaders and civilians in affected districts, there is growing frustration. Community members have accused the government of negligence and failure to protect its citizens and territory. Some have called for stronger military presence and former diplomatic protest. Opposition politicians and civil society organizations have also questioned why the president has not addressed the nation on the matter. For these groups, silence is perceived as weakness or complicity. They argue that Uganda's sovereignty must be defended, and that failure to speak out publicly sets a dangerous precedent. The government has responded to this criticism by highlighting ongoing diplomatic engagements, border patrol deployments, and development aid to affected communities. However, the lack of presidential messaging remains a sore point. In conclusion, a delicate balancing act. President Museveni's silence on the South Sudan border is not a sign of inaction, but rather a reflection of his preferred diplomatic style and strategic calculus. Balancing Uganda's economic interests, regional leadership ambitions, and the risk of escalation, Museveni has opted for a low-profile approach that relies on backdoor diplomacy. Joint commissions and regional frameworks, what do you rather prefer behind the curtains? While this approach has kept the conflict from spiraling into full-scale war, it also risks alienating domestic stakeholders who seek stronger leadership and reassurance. As Uganda continues to navigate this sensitive border issue, the challenge will be to maintain peace and cooperation without appearing passive or indifferent to the concerns of its people. In the end, Museveni's silence speaks volumes about the complex interplay of diplomacy, strategy, and regional politics in East Africa.